Can you tell us a little more about the play-based learning, what it entails, and why it is such a great way for children to learn?
Absolutely. So in the midst of all of my museum experiences, I have kept kind of curiosity about child development at the heart of my practice. And as I learned about um, really about neuroscience and how the young brain develops, um, I was just fascinated by the notion that our brains from a very young age are experience expectant, that it's actually like brushes up with phenomena and those sensory rich experiences, the connections that kiddos make between materials that they're exploring in their worlds, that that lay the foundation for healthy development as kiddos grow. And so, play, I think, is it really is the most essential um, work of not only every child, but of each of us. It's what lends to our flexibility in our thinking. It's the seat of problem solving, and it's also where we get to explore the pieces of ourselves and discover the not only kind of the interests and passions that will drive us in our learning journeys, but also where we get to put on roles, pretend and imagine new possibilities for ourselves. Um, play is play is serious work, um,
Yes, it
and
is. And in the previous conversation that we had, you told me that one thing you wanted was to change the frame of who a museum is for.
it's not only about lowering the barriers to entry into these kinds of joyful spaces. Um, Not everyone grows up feeling that museums are places for them. We're conditioned socially, and especially um, uh, you know, for folks from marginalized communities, um, museums can often feel like more, um, can feel more fortress like and impenetrable than they often feel as welcoming spaces that belong to everyone. And
Mm.
so, um, the work at the New York Hall of Science and the work of my colleagues to invite the intensely diverse, linguistically rich neighbors of the museum into those spaces, into the museum's programs, um, and ensure that they not only felt a sense of welcome, but a sense that the space was always meant for them.
Mm.
Um, that, the work there at that museum has been a kind of constant inspiration to me. I had the extraordinary fortune of working with a visionary, a social worker named Heidi Brinig. And Heidi had created an extraordinary um, program within a children's museum inviting um, court separated families in for their visits um, as they were working toward reunification or permanency planning. And seeing the connection sparked between these kids and their adults really um, transformed my practice. It shook up my idea of who a museum was for.
Mm.
One character is not meant to tell the story of 1,000 people or 1,000,000 people like them. They're only meant to tell their own story, right?
Mm.
And to reflect an experience that is true to the kind of lived experience of that character themselves. There are identities that are so rarely reflected in media, um, and too often aspects of identities that are stereotyped, or where the most traumatic thing that has happened to us, to our family, or to our community um, is uh, is the only story that we're invited to tell.
Mm.
And so I think that one of the key pieces for me is that I'm often reminding myself, my teammates, and our collaborators along the way that no character should have to lead with their trauma, with the most challenging things that have happened to them, and that our characters should be rooted in joy, in their connection with others. And I do think that um, there is room for the kind of deep dive into a story that really helps us understand and connect with the character very deeply,
Mm.
along with those ensemble, shows and pieces of media that are a reflection of the kind of um, wonderful tapestry of humanity, and that echo back to us kind of all of the dimensions of the world that we live in. It's also important that we draw close to the identities that we're working to portray. That means turning to our colleagues um, as kind of cultural touchstones in the midst of the work, and inviting those with lived experience and with expertise to share, to um, really take a look with us at what we're trying to create, to ensure that it is um, created with fidelity to the character's experience, and that it is a positive portrayal of the dimensions of the community that we are representing in the characters that we're creating.